welcome everyone to Pi Day. I hope you're all having a great time. My name is Anar Anand, and I'm a Senior Product Manager here at the AWS Data Protection team. And I'll be joined by my colleague Priyesh Bansal, who is also a Senior Product Manager on AWS Data Protection. And today we'd like to talk to you about centralizing and automating data protection for your applications with AWS Backup. We'll start by establishing why centralized data protection is important to our customers. Then we'll provide a brief overview on our core suite of data protection offerings with AWS Backup. And then I'll hand it over to Priyesh to talk about our latest launch, AWS Backup for Amazon S3, and he'll present us a little demo. So let's dive in. Consider this. From the very beginning of humanity to the year 2003, only half a zettabyte of data was generated. In 2013, it only took 2 days to create that amount of information. By 2018, global data was estimated to be about 33 zettabytes, and by 2025, that amount is supposed to be around 181 zettabytes. Let me put that into perspective for you. 1 zettabyte is equivalent to 1 trillion gigabytes. Now that is a lot of data. So why is this important? Well, as businesses scale from local to global, from on-prem to cloud and hybrid, so do their applications. We now have so many different types of data: structured, unstructured, transactional, relational, PII, and the list goes on. Applications are built using distributed services. Data is often siloed, scattered across cloud and on-prem. Now, this presents a huge challenge for CIOs, storage administrators, and companies of all sizes and in all industries. Let's take a moment to define data protection in the context of our talk today. Data protection is the process of safeguarding important data from corruption, compromise, or loss, and having the ability to restore that data to a functional state in order to maintain business continuity. Now, we need to solve for 3 really important issues here. The first, simplicity. Since customers want to think of data holistically at an application level, and application data is stored across a variety of services, customers end up having to manage their data protection policies across multiple backup operations and tools, and all of this can get pretty cumbersome and complicated really fast. It also creates room for human error. Second, companies not only need to meet compliance needs, they also need to demonstrate their compliance with auditors and regulators. They need to show that they are following regulatory requirements for their data protection, such as enforcing retention periods, separable and independent backups, ensuring that their backups are encrypted. Now, to achieve all of this, customers need a comprehensive monitoring and reporting tool that can enable them to do all of this at scale. And finally, cost optimization. Companies want to be efficient with their time, effort, and cost of ownership so that they can allocate the right resources for the right business continuity, disaster recovery, and data protection practices. Now, keeping all of this in mind, we launched AWS Backup in 2019 as a fully managed, policy-based service that makes it easy to centrally manage and automate data protection of your applications across AWS Compute, database, and file and block storage services. Today, customers can use a single data protection policy to configure, manage, and govern backup and restore operations across 12 stateful AWS services. Backup also helps you to meet evolving regulatory requirements, generate auditor-ready reports, and protect against accidental or malicious deletions using our fine-grained built-in access controls. In addition, AWS Backup enables customers to extend their data protection policy across multi-cloud, multi-account deployments, using cross-region and cross-account backup capabilities to achieve global resiliency and durability for their mission-critical data. Now, how does it all come together? As businesses scale and embrace more and more cloud-based workflows, the main attraction to our customers has been the cloud-native aspect of AWS Backup and being able to bring in other integrations as needed. So as a high level, as I mentioned, AWS Backup is a policy-based service. You may create backup plans, create different policies, and now customers can use that single policy to manage their data protection across, as of today, 12 stateful AWS services. And as you go through and set up your backup plans, you'll notice that AWS Backup enables you to do much more from within that single service. You can control access via IAM policies, scale and protect data across your organization, create immutable backups and give your backups that additional layer of protection. You can also set up notification, logging, audit trails, and of course, monitor compliance and create reports with AWS Backup Audit Manager, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Now, historically, backup was done on premises with a corporate data center, utilizing backup software from different vendors, media servers, and dedicated backup appliances. But with the onset of cloud and hybrid models, we recognize that not every company is set up or executing their data protection in the same manner. So with AWS Backup, we ensure that we meet the customer based on their needs wherever and however they're set up, whether it is hybrid, cloud native, or even on-prem. Now, last year, we launched AWS Backup Audit Manager, which is a key feature to provide customers the ability to enforce data protection policies and prove compliance. By using inbuilt, customizable controls and defining your own parameters based on your organizational needs, you can audit your backups and also satisfy the regulatory requirements at audit time. Audit Manager automatically tracks your backup activities and detects any kinds of drifts from your defined parameters so that you can take quick and corrective actions that can help strengthen your compliance posture. You can also generate periodic or on-demand reports to demonstrate compliance with your control parameters so that auditors and regulators can now get a centralized view of your backup activity through dashboards and reports that you set up. And setting up controls on Backup Audit Manager enables you to answer those questions such as, are all of my resources protected? What is the frequency of those backups? What are the retention periods that I'm enforcing? And all of that then comes together with reports so that you can get a single bird's eye view of your backup, restore, and copy jobs, or just get a compliance summary overall. In 2021, we also announced AWS Backup Vault Lock. Now, Vault Lock protects your backups against malicious or accidental deletions by applying a write once, read many, or worm model to your backup vault. Now, this is especially critical for our customers in the financial services industry, which has specific regulations around how electronic data has to be stored. Once Vault Lock is enabled, no one, including the root account, can delete backups. And the same holds true for lifecycle changes, such as retention or transitioning to cold storage settings, making your backups truly immutable. So then we come to security. With AWS Backup, combined with other AWS functionalities, we allow you to protect your backups with multiple layers of security. So you can use tools such as IAM policies to restrict user access, enable multi-factor authentication to ensure that no unintended party has access to your backups. Vault Lock is another really important tool to create immutable backups and prevent unintended parties from re-encrypting your backup data. You can also use the integration with AWS organizations to scale your protection across your organization. You use KMS keys to enable encryption of your own backups. And of course, there's audit tracking using Backup Audit Manager. As you can see, we have been innovating in AWS Backup at a breakneck speed, and our innovations are primarily focused around 4 pillars. The first is our focus on adding coverage for more stateful AWS services, and Priyesh will take us into detail on that one. Second, on improving governance and compliance with features such as Backup Audit Manager and Backup Vault Lock that I mentioned earlier. Our third pillar has been the improvements on platforms. And most recently, we launched cross-account, cross-region, and cold storage capabilities for DynamoDB. And finally, our fourth pillar has been focused on backups of workloads outside the AWS cloud. A notable launch here was the introduction of AWS Backup for VMware. Customers can now use that same single centralized data protection solution for hybrid VMware workloads and have the flexibility to restore back to on-prem or to VMware Cloud on AWS. I will now hand it over to Priyesh to take us deeper into AWS Backup for Amazon S3.
So as we saw that AWS Backup provides centralized data protection across multitude of AWS services for compute, such as EC2, block-based storage, such as EBS, file-based storage, such as EFS and FSx, as well as databases such as RDS, Aurora, DynamoDB, etc. One of the most common asks that we heard from our customers is to add support for object storage to the portfolio of services that AWS Backup has today. Well, as you know, at AWS, we are constantly hearing our customer requests, and we decided to add it. Now, using AWS Backup, you can centrally manage your backups of your Amazon S3 buckets. This functionality now allows you to take backups of your application data that is stored in your S3 buckets along with other AWS services. You can also use these backups to restore your application data to any specific point in time in the past 35 days. And you have a multitude of recovery options that I'm going to talk about later. And using backup platform capabilities such as Backup Audit Manager and Backup Vault Lock, you can apply multiple layers of security to your S3 buckets backup, as well as monitor the compliance of your data protection policies. This feature has been available in preview for the past couple of months and is now generally available across global AWS regions. So one of the common questions that we heard from our customers is when to use AWS Backup for Amazon S3 versus when to use the industry-leading capabilities available natively within S3 service. So here is our take on it. If you are a backup administrator who is responsible for centralized data protection across AWS services, then we recommend that you use AWS Backup. On the other hand, if you are a storage administrator who is primarily responsible for managing the data stored in S3, then you should use the S3 capabilities to prevent your data as well as to prevent any unintended access. So the way we see it is that both of them are complementary to each other, and our customer tell us that they intend to use both of them together. Now, what exactly is backed up when you take a backup of your S3 bucket through AWS Backup? So in addition to the object data that is stored in your buckets, we also take backup of metadata, such as any object tags that you may have applied, your access control list, as well as any user-defined metadata that you might have. AWS Backup supports both full periodic backups as well as continuous or incremental backups. Please note that the first backup that you take is a full backup, and any subsequent backups that you take would be incremental on an object level. Now, once you have taken backup of your S3 buckets, you can use them to restore your application data. And we have a lot of flexibility on how and where you can restore them. So you can choose to restore your backups either to your source S3 bucket, any other existing bucket, or you can also choose to create a new S3 bucket as part of your restore workflow. Similar to backups, you can restore your object data as well as any metadata such as ACLs, object data, and any user-defined metadata. Getting started with AWS Backup for Amazon S3 is fairly straightforward, and you can do so in 3 simple steps. First, define backup policy. Here you can define your backup preferences, such as how frequently you want to take backup, how long do you want to retain them, whether you want a continuous backup or not, and where you want to store your backups. Once you have defined your backup policy, you can assign your S3 buckets to that policy. And you can do so by mentioning the aunts of your S3 buckets, as well as you can use the tagging mechanism that we provide for data protection at scale. Once you have assigned your resources to your policy, AWS Backup automates your data protection management. And you can monitor that using AWS Backup Audit Manager, as well as our integrations with CloudWatch and SNS. Now, I'm going to do a quick demo of how you can use AWS Backup for Amazon S3. So you can get started by logging into your AWS console and navigate to AWS Backup Service. From here, on the dashboard space, you can choose to create an on-demand backup of your S3 buckets. I'm going to select the resource type as S3, and then you can select the bucket name of which you want to create a backup for. You have additional options such as configuring the backup window, mentioning the backup vault where you want to store your backup, as well as how long you want to retain your backup. I'm not going to create an on-demand backup right now because I want to show how you can use a backup plan to do so. So you can use either an existing backup plan or create a new one. I'm going to create a new backup plan here. So just select a template. I'm going to choose a daily backup template and give your backup plan a name. If you scroll down, you can see the backup rule applied to this backup plan. Let's see what is in there. So here you can see that the backup is scheduled for daily. You can specify your backup vault as well as customize the backup window. Also, I have enabled the continuous backup, which will allow me to do more granular restores, and we're going to cover that later. So once you're satisfied with your preferences, go ahead and create that backup plan. Now, the second step is assigning resources. So I'm going to create a resource assignment and provide it a name. So here you can either choose to assign all of your resources to this assignment, or you can select a specific set of resources. I'm going to choose S3 here. Then you can either specify the S3 buckets you want to take backup of, or you can use tags. I'm going to use tags as it gives me flexibility to take backups at scale. Once you specify the tags, go ahead and click on Assign Resources. Now, AWS Backup will automate the backup of all the resources that are covered under this resource assignment and would manage them as per the policy that you defined in your backup plan. Now, for you to restore these application data, you can traverse to the backup vault where you are storing your recovery points. I'm going to filter it by my S3 resources, and I'm going to choose one of the recovery points that I have to restore from. Here you can see the properties of my backups, that it's a continuous backup, as well as the storage tier is warm. So I'm going to kickstart my restore workflow now. So here you can see that I can either choose to restore to the last restorable time or specify a specific time to which I want to restore to. I love point-in-time recovery as it provides me a way to meet those stringent recovery point objective that I have. So you can select the date as well as the time. Now the time could be as granular as up to a second in here. Okay, so after specifying the time here, I'm going to scroll down and look at some other settings that I have. So I can either choose to restore the entire bucket or either do an object level restore. You can specify up to 5 S3 objects in a single workflow. Then you can either choose to restore to your existing bucket, or you can create a new bucket from this backup. I'm going to create a new bucket. So specify the name of the bucket that you want to give to. And if you go down, you have more flexibility on how do you want to restore. You can specify the encryption key that you want to restore your newly created S3 bucket with, as well as the IAM role you want to use for restore. I'm going to go with the default IAM role that we have and click on restore. Now, depending on how big your backup is, it might take a few hours to restore the complete data, and you can check your status from our dashboard. For continuous regular monitoring, you can also create a report plan using Backup Audit Manager. So you can specify the report template as well as give your report plan a name. If you scroll down, you can see the options of the file format of your report. I'm going to choose both CSV and JSON, as well as specify the S3 bucket where I want to receive my reports. Once you create a report plan, it automatically generates a report every day and deliver to your specified S3 bucket. Let's look at an existing report plan that I have in my account. So here, as you can see, that a new report is generated every day. And on the right-hand side, you can see the report link. If you click it, it will take you to the S3 bucket where your reports are stored. You can select one of these reports, you can download it and show it to your auditors to demonstrate that you are compliant, as well as you can use it for monitoring purposes. So that was a very quick demo of how to use AWS Backup for Amazon S3. We have a lot more options and features available, and I would recommend you to go to our documentation to check them out. So AWS Backup is available globally across 25 AWS regions, and we are adding more regions on the go. Okay, so to summarize our presentation for today, you can use AWS Backup to centralize data protection across 12 AWS services, which now includes Amazon S3. AWS Backups provide a fully automated and policy-based data protection. And you can also use the platform features to continuously monitor, evaluate, and demonstrate compliance of your data protection policies to auditors and regulators. To learn more about AWS Backup as well as our support for S3, please refer to the resources listed here. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to at any of the channels available here.
Some questions for you. So let's say I'm using AWS and I've got my important data stored there in S3 and elsewhere, and I know I need to back things up. So I enable AWS Backup on my environment, and then my boss comes along and says he needs something that he can look at or show his boss to demonstrate that we're all covered in terms of backups. Does AWS Backup help me answer that question?
Now, this is where Backup Audit Manager comes in, and we talked a little bit about that earlier, so I'll elaborate. With Audit Manager, you're setting controls that essentially help you answer questions like, which resources am I protecting? Are all the correct resources backed up in the correct ways? Are we establishing the right frequencies for them? Or are we establishing the right retention periods, encryptions, and so on for them? So when your boss comes in and asks you for something like that, all you have to do is set up those reports, and like Priya showed, you have your report plan, and you can get as granular or high level a report as you want to show not only your boss, but your auditors, your regulators, and so on.
Cool. And a couple of times this morning in other sessions, we mentioned that, we may have multiple AWS accounts, right? A modern environment often involves several, maybe many accounts.
Could be thousands.
Could be thousands of accounts, right? And each of these will have data at scale, right? I want peace of mind that it's all backed up. So how does AWS Backup help me know that I've got them all covered?
Yeah, so AWS Backup is seamlessly integrated with AWS Organizations, which is a central service for managing multiple accounts that you may have in your environment. So using this integration from one central management account, you can define your backup policies, push it down across AWS accounts and regions which you want to manage as part of AWS Backup, and then monitor them from that central account as well. So using this, you can easily scale to the thousands of accounts in multiple AWS regions that you are using and get that single pane of glass view to monitor your data protection.
Cool. All right, so so this is another thing that is someone responsible for data that folks might be wanting to know about AWS Backup. So you've talked about the organization's integration, how you can apply your backup policies to a large cloud estate. You've talked about the kinds of audit reports that you can generate to be able to sort of straightforwardly see that backup is there and that it's working. The third leg of that is something that I'm sure that your customers ask you about AWS Backup. Not only do I need to know that this backup exists and that the backup was last taken at X time and that it's applied consistently across the environment, but I need to test it, right? Like your disaster recovery plan doesn't work until you've exercised it. If you have a disaster recovery plan that you haven't exercised, well, there is a chance that there could be some unknown lurking
It's not
in
a
there.
disaster recovery plan.
Right.
So-
And so, how do you recommend to your customers who have set up AWS backup and they see all the backups are there and they're getting the audit reports and they have good peace of mind that their data's been backed up, when they say, okay, what are the best strategies? What are the most successful strategies for customers who actually want to test this plan and make sure that when that day that they're hoping never comes, when that day comes, that these backups are going to, in fact, even that all of their workloads that surround the backups are prepared to use the restored data. What do you recommend to customers like that?
Yeah, so there are a few ways we can go about it, right? So the first one is that we provide continuous monitoring. So anytime your backup, restore, or any copy jobs that you have, their status changes, whether they're successfully completed, or if for some reason they failed, you can configure to receive these notifications through SNS, or you can also monitor your CloudWatch dashboards to understand like how your operational posture is going along. And if you need to take any steps, you can do that. And then you can configure the backup audit manager reports to do it. The second way to go a further level deep is you can actually initiate the restore of the backups that you have taken from our secured backup vault and see that if the restore is successfully completed, that will provide you one level more assurance that, okay, I can rely on these backups. Third, if you have more stringent requirements, you can actually test or validate the data that you have restored from your backups. And to do so, we already provide you some blogs and some architectural diagrams on how you can run those data validation tests to be completely assured that, okay, if a DR scenario arrives, I have my backups that I can rely to recover my application data from and maintain business continuity. So depending on how stringent your needs is and how critical your application is, you can use one or more of these techniques to validate it.
Yeah, I mean, I especially like that second technique that that you shared. One of the really powerful aspects of a managed anything in AWS, because AWS actually offers these higher level services to manage a lot of different aspects. Here you're talking about backup, is that the restore is managed for you as well. Mm-hmm. You can kick off a restore even when you're not having a disaster. You can kick off the restore. You can restore the data. Make sure that do a game day of sorts. Make sure that your application is still working with the restored data. So that's one of the power of kind of a managed solution such as AWS Backup is not only are the backups easy and you can see that they're working and you know that they're working, but the restore is also straightforward to do.
It's all about confidence.
All about confidence.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the name of the game with this feature.
Yep. Cool. All right, we have one more very important question
Our
for
most
you.
important question.
Our most important question. What is your favorite pie?
You can go.
Okay, so I'm a little bit more traditional, so I'm going to go with pecan pie.
Okay, good choice.
And I just had
Good
it
choice.
before this session. It was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
good
man.
choice. The baked from the heart pecan is one of their flavors, and I'm actually looking forward to trying one of those after this session. So pecan, excellent choice.
Yeah, that was going to be my choice too.
Oh,
so
good.
I'll
2
just
votes
have
for
to
pecan.
go with my second one and say apple.
Okay, well,
Apple?
all right.
Oh, now we have a problem, you see, because
We
if
have a
by
problem.
voting for apple, you now bring apple and pumpkin into the joint lead.
And then Steve and I can't handle this. It's a little bit too confusing for us. So,
I'm going to go with apple.
okay. I don't know what we're going to do.
Because I can. There
Okay.
we go. All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so
yeah,
much.
thank you for having us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. So that brings us to the end of our hosting segment.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure indeed. Yes, we're going to be handing over to Brian and Sean for the afternoon sessions on putting your data to work on S3. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I certainly did.
I had a great time. It
yeah.
was great to learn about all of these great features.
Yep,
of
and thanks to
S3.
the presenters for coming in and talking to us about data protection, security, replication, compliance, digital learning badges. It's all great stuff. Happy birthday, S3. Happy 16th birthday. And right now, I'm off to get some more pie.
Yeah, we're
I'm
gonna get some
hoping
pie.
that cherry pie has arrived. Fingers crossed.
I'm hoping for one of the pecans. All right. Thank you very much. Come back. We got lots more great content for you.